Hello, everyone, and good evening. A big, huge welcome from me. I am Dr. Kristina Carman, and this is this week's edition of the IMA Weekly Show. Tonight, we're going to take a big, deep dive into a topic that I certainly feel deserves attention, and that is men's health. And across the country, men are facing lots of new health challenges, fatigue, hormonal imbalances, fertility concerns, and early signs of metabolic stress. But we also have some really phenomenal new tools and insights to really turn those trends around. Joining me tonight are two of my colleagues and fellow IMA Senior Fellows. I have Dr. Ryan Cole, who many of you know well. He is a pathologist with more than 20 years of experience in dermopathology. Whew, it's been a long day. That's a good one to get out at this time, right? And molecular diagnostics. He is the founder of Cole Diagnostics, an independent laboratory serving tens of thousands of patients each year. And I have Dr. Brooke Miller, who also many of you know well, a family and emergency medicine physician with nearly 4 decades of clinical experience. He runs Miller Family Health and Wellness in Virginia, where he focuses on lifestyle medicine, prevention, and the doctor-patient relationship. All my favorite things. So, together, we are going to explore some really, really important topics through smarter testing. We're going to look at some hormonal discussions around fertility and sort of broader sort of hormonal health when it comes to men's health. And then we're going to look at those diet and lifestyle and nutritional aspects and even the more spiritual aspects which I think play a huge role in all of this. So I've got some slides, guys, and we're going to use those slides as discussion pieces, and we're going to try to keep this very organic and have more of a conversation. But we'll try to keep everything together as far as the subjects are concerned. So we're really going to focus mostly on the cardiometabolic piece, that hormonal health, and as mentioned, that diet, lifestyle, nutrition, and that spiritual aspect. So let me see if I can share my screen, and then we will dive in. Okay. Okay, here we go. So let me flick through these to get to our first discussion. As she says, she can flick through, maybe not. I don't know why it's not working. Tech and I, we do so well. Okay, cardiometabolic risk factors. So, my two lovely colleagues, do you have anything that you'd like to kick off with here? I suppose maybe my first question is, um, obviously the insulin resistance is a really big topic, and one that we see probably as clinicians very regularly within our practice through testing and obviously through even symptoms. Why do you think that this is an issue as far as, or why do you think it's even warrants a conversation as far as the whole cardiometabolic risk factors when we're looking at men's health specifically?
If I could go from a clinical standpoint, I would like to make some comments. We are in the amongst of an obesity crisis and a diabetes crisis, and a large percentage of my population, both male and female, fit that category. And over the years, what I have discovered is that these people are insulin resistant, and I would say it's rare that I find an overweight type 2 diabetic male that is not low in testosterone. Uh,
Mm,
it is they pretty much go hand in hand. And it's obviously, and I've never really figured out whether being low in testosterone obviously increases your risk of obesity and increases visceral fat, or is it that the testosterone, or is it that the obesity is the first part? And I think it's probably a combination of both, that they go hand in hand and one feeds off the other, and it's sort of a snowball going downhill. That's hard to stop. What would
I,
you?
I agree, Dr. Miller. I think what most people don't realize is obesity is a pro-inflammatory state. The more fat our body carries, we make cytokines or signals that increase inflammation, especially interleukin 6. But in addition to that, the more adipose the body stores, it shifts the body into more of a estrogen pathway instead of testosterone. And estrogen can secondarily suppress male testosterone. So, it is a snowball effect. One leads to the other and back and forth. And, cardiometabolic health is all body health because everything's connected. All the blood vessels are connected. And the higher your blood sugar over time, the more irritation you get to the lining of your blood vessels, be it in the lungs, be it in the heart, be it in the brain, be it in the genitalia. So keeping your blood sugar in a tight window and correcting your resistance to insulin. Insulin's a hormone that helps sugar get from the circulation into your cells. Insulin resistance is the inability of that to happen, and then you have too much sugar floating around in your blood, irritates the lining of the vessels over time, and then those little nicks and scratches that happen to that lining of the tubes of your vessels, then that's where cholesterol is kind of the Band-Aid that comes along and tries to patch all of those little nicks and cuts of the blood vessels. So getting your blood sugar into a normal range, shifting lifestyles, which I know we're going to talk about, is so important because cardiometabolic health is all body health.
Yeah, absolutely. And would there be other sort of warning signs potentially that may signal that there's actually some deeper vascular issues? So I would say, and certainly from my experience, when men present with erectile issues, that these could be warning signs for deeper problems downstream, and then perhaps that warrants more investigation and testing. So it doesn't, in those scenarios, maybe necessarily have to be an obesity picture, but there could certainly be other things underlying that are kind of driving some of those symptoms. Is that correct in your
Yeah,
experience?
that's a great indicator. And I think the
Yeah.
other one, tell me if you agree, Dr. Miller, is the retina is an easy part of the body to observe. And you can look at the vessels at the back of the eye, have an ophthalmologist, optometrist, whoever you see regularly, can do a snapshot of your retina and look at how branched the vessels are, how proliferative they are, whether or not they're blocked. So the eyes are a very easy window to vascular health. In addition to, as you mentioned, Dr. Carman, we hear so much and get advertised to on every NFL game about erectile dysfunction, et cetera. Those are two very easy indicators as to the health and wellness of the vascular system.
Yeah, Ryan brings up a good point. Atherosclerosis and the vascular system, it's a systemic disorder. And if you have atherosclerosis in one part of your body, most likely you're going to have it in other parts of the body. And a physical examination can really pick up on a lot of that. Obviously, erectile dysfunction can be a hormonal thing, but more often today it is a vascular thing.
Yeah.
And it is seen quite often in people who are insulin resistant because insulin resistant, as he pointed out, is an pro-inflammatory hormone. It causes all kinds of metabolic changes, including inflammation in the lining of the blood vessel walls. And then the body tries to repair that and lays down these lipid-rich plaque. But listen to the carotid arteries, even something as simple as feeling for peripheral pulses. Usually, if you got someone that's healthy, they'll have big bounding pulses and be easily to be found. And in people with erectile dysfunction, usually their pulses will be not near as strong, and sometimes at the feet absent. So there are a lot of clues there, and sexual health usually goes along with good physical cardiometabolic health.
Yeah, I love it. And okay, so here's a great question. What is one lifestyle change that can reliably move the needle for men that are trying to improve their metabolic health, but then also hormonal health? And when we say hormones, we're talking about prostate, we're talking about fertility, we're talking about all the things.
One very simple thing is sunlight. And, I could easily say, oh, well, cut your sugar, which of course we're going to recommend. But sunlight regulates so many of our hormones. And if we don't get adequate natural light, and if we get too much toxic blue light, the hormonal and the signaling pathways within the body don't communicate properly. So setting our body clock properly allows hormones to signal each other properly. That starts with getting morning sunlight, whether it's just 10 minutes of going outside in the rising sun, setting the body clock, the circadian clock in the brain.
Yeah.
Then that talks to, your centers in the brain that have feedback loops. Then they talk to your adrenal glands, they talk to your gonads, and then they talk back, and it's a feedback system. But if your body clock is off and your sleep cycles are off, that we'll get into diet, I know, but one of the most basic things is light, and we bathe ourselves in toxic blue light and don't get an adequate full spectrum of light from what Mother Nature intended in that sunshine, and that sets so many of our hormonal clocks.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that one. And because that circadian rhythm is so fundamental to then what happens as far as sleep is concerned. And we know that is tremendously important when it comes to resetting all of those pathways.
And I'm not saying you have to be out in the sun all day long. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, that's fun. But a minimum of 20 minutes a day,
Yeah, agree.
and especially that morning light is important.
Yeah, agree.
I tell my patients all the time that good health and wellness in most people is pretty simple. I also tell my kids that come in for sports physicals or annual physicals that life is full of decision making. And if you make good decisions, good things will happen. And it's pretty simple as far as health and wellness to break it down. It's just like Ryan said, it's sunlight, it's diet or whatever you put into your body, it's sleep, which goes along with everything that we've talked about, and it's exercise and vitamin D. And if you do those right, you'll most likely have a very happy, long, and healthy life.
Yeah. It's really refreshing to hear you both say that though, to be honest, because I think there's so much information out there and to a certain extent it's confusing and can get conflicting. And I think if we can peel back those layers and remind ourselves that actually it's the basic things that we can do every single day and doing them consistently are actually the things that are really going to move the needle when it comes to your health. It's not the fancy biohacking things, it's the simple, basic things and getting those right. And then on there, you can layer if you want to optimize this, that, and the other. But if you're not doing those basics right, no amount of optimization is going to really touch the sides because fundamentally what we need is simple, consistent support constantly. So,
The irony is the most basic things are free. You know,
exactly.
we complain about the challenge of the cost of healthcare, and I don't disagree. However, some of the most basic first principle things we can do, whether it's sunlight and or putting your bare feet on the earth, or I'm sitting here doing a podcast with my feet on a grounding mat at the moment,
Same.
um, and that takes the charge out of your body and equalizes it such that your cells don't stick together and clump. There's just so many simple things that are free that we can do, and it's what we choose to do, and also the act of omitting things that we know are harmful to us. You can either pay up front now for the health costs or pay later, and so making the proper choices now sure saves your pocketbook and your ability to function well into older age. Making those decisions now is an investment in your future.
I'm so glad you guys both brought that point up. It is pretty simple, and most things are free, and they're uh, provided for by God or Mother Nature or whatever you want to call it. It's sort of a pet peeve of mine that I see. Health and wellness has become, a big buzzword, and reversal of chronic disease has become a big buzzword, and everybody's got a gimmick to sell, and that really sort of irritates me. Um, it is simple. It's doing the right things on a daily basis, just like Dr. Carman said, a consistent basis, and making the right decisions. And if you do that, you can just like she said, you can fine tune things with certain supplements and biohacks or peptides or whatnot. But you got to get the basics right in order to be healthy and well. And I hope our viewers take home that as the main point that I want to make tonight about do the simple things right, and everything else will fall into place.
You can't out supplement a bad diet. I say that all the time.
or out-train a bad diet.
There you go. There you go. All right, guys. So pivoting a little bit, let's start diving a little bit into fertility and hormones specifically. What would you say are some of the key drivers behind the 50% decline in sperm count since the 1970s? It's pretty significant when I started diving into the research.
Well,
Uh,
I haven't researched this, Christina. Maybe I have, but I would say it's pretty obvious. It's what we put into our body. It's the processed foods.
Yeah.
It is the chemicals in the environment, the hormone disruptors. The glyphosates, the atrazines in the environment. It's a sedentary lifestyle. It's the blue light. Um, I would say it's the things in the environment that we're exposed to on a daily basis.
Yeah, you got that absolutely right. Look, my slides just magically came up here. So I'm like, that's so good. It's absolutely right. So we're looking at metabolic dysfunction, those environmental toxins, chronic inflammation, poor diet, heat exposures, which is interesting. Maybe we can talk a bit more about that, and stress.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Miller, especially the toxic load, whether it's the microplastics, whether it's, and I think this is where men need to be careful, especially since we're discussing men's health, is proestrogenic compounds. Sunscreens have benzones. That's a proestrogenic compound. A lot of different chemicals in our environment, atrazines, the ones that, alter the frogs. Those kind of things are proestrogens. And so living a clean lifestyle as close to organic as possible, and kind of the Pareto principle, 80-20, don't obsess over everything. Stress is not a good thing either, but be mindful of what you're consuming. Avoid the ultra processed foods. The challenge we do have is glyphosate in our environment, and I've said it before, and I'll say it until the cows come home, as both Brooke and I raise cows. Um, the challenge with glyphosate, it's patented as an antibiotic, and it dysregulates our gut microbiome. And when we dysregulate the gut microbiome, we also dysregulate our immune system, and we dysregulate our hormones. And so glyphosate has a propensity to kill our good gut bacteria, especially our bifidobacteria. So trying to avoid those types of things. Also, a lot of people will bring up, and I don't disagree, is non-native electrical fields that we hyperexpose ourselves to. And those can alter our hormonal state and electrical signaling and internal body light signaling. So it's so multifactorial, as your slide shows there, Dr. Carman, that we do have to be mindful of all the inputs. Go back to the basics, but certainly avoid the things that can be avoided.
Ryan, you bring up a point and that I've often thought about the glyphosate, but the other thing, that the glyphosate is being treated is they're treated on grains that are genetically modified, so the glyphosate won't kill the grains. Do you think the GMO, the genetic modification, has anything to do with it, or do you think it's more the pesticides and herbicides that they're treated with?
I think it's a little bit of both. And the thing that I think is important there is our body is adapted to nature and not synthetic. And so the further away from what we're bioadapted to a food becomes, I think the more deleterious impact it can have on our cellular metabolic mechanisms and activity. So we're intended to eat ancient corns. And if we eat a modern corn that's been modified and grown 10,000 miles away, I think that can have an impact. And eating foods locally balances, I'm trying not to get too technical, but the construct that if I eat a mango from Central America in the middle of winter in Idaho, the deuterium content, which affects the metabolic activity of your mitochondria, the heavy water versus the normal light water, will inhibit the energy of cells. And so we eat this global diet, but sometimes that's not the best thing we can be doing. We should be eating as close to home as possible, especially in the seasons we live in where we live.
There's
Christina,
actually a lot of research around the effect of that in the microbiome as well, and how the body breaks down those nutrients, and actually the absorption versus not absorbing as adequately based on where that's coming from. And also, our bodies adapt very much from a seasonal perspective. So, if you're living in a cold climate but you're eating pineapple, which shouldn't necessarily be, you're not as efficient, or at least this is what a lot of the research is showing, you're not as efficient at using the nutrients as you would otherwise. So it's really, there's a lot to that.
so Christina, I know you're big on the microbiome and you know a lot
Mm.
about it. What do you think the effect of GMOs? I know people go to Europe and of course they're not exposed to the chemicals, but they go to Europe on vacation and they eat a lot of grains and they seem to maintain their weight. And they come home and they eat grains and they blow up. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that and the microbiome with GMOs?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There is a huge impact, and what we're seeing is that actually right from the beginning of entry. So when food enters, it's actually affecting your stomach acid production. So if there is even slight variations in that first sort of fundamental step, we're already seeing an effect on how the rest of digestion. So it will affect motility, so how things are moving through the GI tract. And then obviously the effect, a tremendous effect on the microbiome. I mean, we have trillions and trillions and trillions of bacteria that live in our gut that thrive on nutrients, not on chemicals, and on processed foods and on dyes and on things that we don't even know how to pronounce, and we don't even know what they're for because they're flavor enhancers or preservatives, etc. But those bacteria, we have more bacteria in our gut than we have cells in our body, and it's a phenomenal area to really dive into and to actually nourish and support. But it has a huge impact on sort of slowing that digestive function, and you're not as efficient at then training the immune system, because so much of our microbiome plays a huge role in that alone, in supporting the whole immune function as an overall. So then we start to see food intolerances, we see more allergies, we see more histamine issues, because everything is being a little degraded and it's not running as effectively as it should.
Yeah, and in addition to that, kind of going back to the hormonal influences and the microplastics getting into the GI tract, how often are we eating out of plastic containers or drinking out of plastic bottles and getting those proestrogenic compounds in our body too often? So I think that's another important factor.
Yeah, huge, huge. So I guess coming back to more, overall health, why would you say that metabolic dysfunction, like high insulin or even visceral fat, can directly lower the testosterone production? I think we probably touched on that, but I think maybe let's dive into it a little bit deeper. It's certainly from my perspective, it is our bodies are so interconnected, and it's never one thing. So often patients will come with one symptom, or they have this, that, and the other. We have to actually look at it from a whole picture perspective, and it's not just the sperm, it's all the other things that are affecting it. And that's how I would approach it, but I would love to hear from both of you, your thoughts on that.
Dr. Miller, go ahead.
Well, as you alluded to earlier, Ryan, adipose tissue will be more likely to convert testosterone to estradiol, so put you in a high estrogen state. Um, I also think that increased insulin levels, increased stress hormones, which suppress the hypothalamic pituitary axis and produce reduction of that stimulation that causes the testosterone levels to go up, being from the gonads and the other organs that produce testosterone. Um, and insulin resistance is an inflammatory hormone, and inflammation suppresses mitochondrial function, and things just don't work as well.
Yeah, and I think the other thing from that metabolism point of view and getting our hormones shifted, look, I'm not preaching to the choir. This is something that, I've lived. 17 years ago, I dropped 46 pounds. I had dad bod before dad bod was cool. And, I looked in the mirror one day. I gained a couple of sympathy pounds with each of my six daughters, and eventually I was overweight. I'm like, huh, how'd this happen? I read a book called, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It by a science author, Gary Taubes. And so that's when I changed, my food lifestyle and went more keto. I went pure keto for a while. Now I'm a little more metabolically adapted. But another important thing in terms of metabolism and the hormones is it can affect our inflammation, which can then eventually affect your thyroid. And your thyroid is so critically important for your metabolic activity. So when we hear the word metabolism, the primary guide of our metabolism is our thyroid gland. And we hear it in women quite often, but I think that's something men need to address. What's your thyroid function? Is it functioning properly? Are you gaining weight because your thyroid is one of the organs that's off in your metabolic processes and primary metabolic process?
It's interesting, Brian, you said you lost your dad bod 17 years ago. It was about 15 or 16 years ago that I lost my dad bod. When I was coming up in college and medical school, I was always in great physical condition and shape. And then we had children and our lifestyles changed and got less interested in my own health and wellness than in my children. But it's funny, I have to credit my wife for making this dramatic change. I wanted to go fishing in Montana. Um, and there was a conference that happened to be in Utah. And she said, okay, I'll go fishing with you in Montana if you go to this How to Achieve Healthy Aging hormonal conference in Utah. And by God, we did it. And it was a life changer. I have to credit her. It was very much a life changer for me and resulting my patient population as well.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to say, look, I understand what you're going through, and I do, and it's changeable. And I think that's the important message on all the things that we're hitting on here. It's doable, and you don't have to go through all sorts of complex testing per se. Just some of the basics. What's your hemoglobin A1C? That measures what your blood sugar's been for the last 2 to 3 months. What's your fasting insulin level on an 8-hour fast? And what's your fasting insulin level? And if you know those three things, you know basically, okay, I'm in a metabolically insulin resistant state. What do I need to do to change it? Okay, all the basic things that we've talked about so far. And so, I mean, you're a great example, Dr. Miller. I'm a always trying example of trying to maintain.
You sell yourself short. One thing you were talking about lab work, one thing that you was talking about your lab work, even before hemoglobin A1C goes up, the most sensitive indicator that I know of insulin resistance and pre-diabetes is looking at the triglycerides and HDL cholesterol count. Triglycerides will go way high right before someone becomes diabetic or pre-diabetic, and HDL cholesterol will be suppressed.
And the
And
correlation with cardiac disease correlates a lot more with those triglycerides than it does with your cholesterol.
And the triglycerides is one that you can really, really, really move the needle just with diet and diet alone.
yeah,
Big one.
triglycerides and HDL, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Triglycerides go down, HDL will go up.
Yeah.
And that's really what I look at in cardiovascular risk factor. I've become somewhat of I don't care what your total and LDL cholesterol are. In my 40 years of clinical medicine, that's usually not. I've seen people with triple bypass surgery have a total cholesterol of 180, and I see these very old men and women who've in their 80s and 90s and never had any heart disease, and they got cholesterols of in the high 200s, low 300s.
Mhm.
And it cringe when they go see someone, a cardiologist or something, and wants to put them on a statin or something because their cholesterol's high.
And ironically, the higher your cholesterol is in that 200 range, those individuals do tend to live longer
Mhm.
because cholesterol, and some know this, but not all do, cholesterol is the basic backbone of all your hormones. So depleting cholesterol with some of these pharmaceutical interventions like statins depletes, look, if someone calls you a fathead, it's a compliment. The membranes of your cells of your brain are made up of fats. You want to eat the proper ratios of fats and avoid the inflammatory fats or the omega-6 fats. You need a little bit, but not a lot. But being able to say, okay, I need fat in my diet. It's not fat that's the villain. It's the sugars and the carbohydrates and the things that will spike your blood sugar that are the villains. And then eating natural fats, whether it's beef tallow, whether it's butter, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, the things that are natural and haven't been modified.
Yeah, as simple as it can be. Simple food. If it looks like real, then that's what we need to be going for, I think.
I want to bring up one other thing real quick. I know you may have it on one of your charts later, Dr. Carmen, but another lab value that is very important for men, especially, is iron.
Mm.
Men
Great.
tend to run high on iron. That's because, we don't have a monthly cycle like women, and so we don't shed iron. And iron is very pro-oxidative as well. Right? Literally, the body can rust. So knowing what your hemoglobin is very important for men, because if you do tend to run on the high side, and some men do hormonal replacement, testosterone, your iron can go higher. Being a regular blood donor is a good way for men to get their iron back down into a, a better range. And iron also tracks very closely with your copper intake. And copper is so important for DNA synthesis in the body. Copper is so important for keeping iron levels from getting too high. Having an important, this is going to get into the more esoterica of mineral balance, but having a proper ratio of calcium, magnesium, copper, iron, sodium, etc., is so important for cellular function as well. But don't let your iron get too high as a man, because that can lead to liver problems and it can lead to other oxidative stress on the body over time.
And then we look at ferritin markers as inflammatory markers as well in some context, right?
We do, yeah. Ferritin can be an indicator of inflammation. And one of the simple ones you can do too to see if you're living in an inflamed state is high sensitivity C-reactive protein,
Protein.
CRPHS. That's another one. Are you chronically inflamed and don't know it? And yeah, ferritin can be an acute phase reactant. We can look at that and say, your ferritin usually spikes when you have an infection. But at the same time, looking at your iron binding capacity, your iron storage, your ferritin is one of the many markers that we can use in the laboratory.
Okay. I would love to segue a little bit into hormones and hormone replacement and BHRT and how would we all approach that? What would that look like? Clinically, who would be good candidates? Um, are there contraindications? Certainly from a fertility perspective, we know sometimes we have to sort of approach that with individualization. But overall, what would be your stance as far as the hormonal picture? And would it just be hormones, or would you approach it from a more holistic aspect?
From a clinical standpoint, it's definitely got to be a holistic approach. And anybody that is symptomatic, that has signs and symptoms of hypogonadism or suboptimal testosterone levels. I've been treating men and women hormonally for 15, 16 years now. And by far the healthiest and the happiest postmenopausal men and women that we have are those that have chosen to do hormone. We use bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, so they're not structurally or altered and have normal metabolisms. So anybody in that age group is a candidate. Now you have to decide whether they would benefit from them and what their risk factors are. Typically, risk factors that you want to be very concerned about is previous history of venous thromboembolism. I was very heartened to see Jay Bhattacharya come. Martin Colton. What's the FDA commissioner? Marty Makary. Marty Makary come out and talk about hormones the other day, and
Yeah.
it's sort of it's like, yes, I've been doing this. I've been telling people this for years and years and years, and a lot of women have suffered, and a lot of women have been hesitant to do hormone replacement therapy because of all the noise out there. But I can safely say that in my practice, if you use bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and follow them along both clinically and from a laboratory standpoint and optimize their hormone levels, the incidence of breast cancer in my practice has gone way down in those patients that take bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. In men, since this is a men's health conference, when I first started prescribing testosterone, a lot of physicians would say, "Oh, you can't do that. You're going to cause prostate cancer." Well, I saw data that showed that that was not really the case. And sure, it's been proven that actually, if you have low testosterone levels versus augmented testosterone and optimized testosterone levels, your risk of prostate cancer actually goes down as well. But as you know, the lab value for normal range for testosterone is really wide. It's like 300 to
Huge.
900.
Mm.
Well, in my practice, I like to take most men not all, but most men that are over 50 will have testosterone levels in that low normal range, and they wouldn't qualify from an insurance standpoint to be put on hormone replacement therapy. Their insurance wouldn't pay for it. But if you take those men and I see they're suboptimal, and you bring them over here in the lower range, and you bring them back over to where they were as a young man, it really invigorates them. It motivates them. You see a change in their body. You see a change in their mindset. You see a change in their motivation. They obviously, it improves their libido and their pleasure in life, and it also has an effect on their diet too. They start exercising and they start eating better, and they become much more health conscious. So I think we've helped a lot of people by doing just that, is optimizing their hormone levels. And you can't say it's the fountain of youth, but it really is the fountain of youth, I think.
And I agree with Dr. Miller. And, do I personally use testosterone? I do. As we age, our levels go down. And if you look at lab values, the lab values have stratified per age decade what your hormones should be. Well, I don't want to feel like an average 70-year-old. I want to feel like I'm in my 20s or 30s. I want to have that same optimal range. And so being able to measure that's important. But you bring up a great point, Dr. Carman, and that's, do you take a holistic approach? Yes, in a younger age cohort, I would. I would find out what are the environmental impacts that are causing testosterone to be low, because when one does go on replacement testosterone, it can affect fertility and sperm motility and sperm counts. And so if you're going to replace, make sure the patient is age appropriate and hasn't had other factors that are affecting the testosterone to be low. So I think obviously this is why having someone that takes a holistic approach is critically important, because you can correct things and normalize that testosterone in a lot of age groups before you even go to replacement therapy. And then another important note is, if a male chooses to do hormone replacement, if your wife is on an estrogen patch, make sure you don't make contact with that patch, because the small amount of estrogen that she's getting through a patch, if you spoon and snuggle at night, or she puts it in a place where it's contacting your body frequently, that can affect your testosterone level as well, which is one of those undershared things that people do need to know about. And probably one of the most important hormones, it's a prohormone of all that Dr. Miller brought up, is vitamin D. Because vitamin D can have such an impact on so many of your other hormones, and of course in balance with magnesium and vitamin A and vitamin E and other fat-soluble vitamin K and other vitamins. But that's an essential prohormone that can affect your testosterone and other hormones as well.
Yeah, Ryan, you brought up a good point. It's age appropriate. We do see young men who have low testosterone levels, and they ask what they can do, and they say, can I use testosterone? Well, I don't really recommend it in a young man who still is of childbearing age and wants to have children. But in those cases, optimizing the things that will endogenously increase their testosterone levels. But if that fails, then you can give them HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, and it actually doesn't negatively affect the feedback loop. If you give them exogenous testosterone, it adversely affects the feedback loop, and their endogenous testosterone levels will go down, and it'll suppress the gonads, and the gonads will shrink, and they'll produce less sperm, and their sperm counts or semen counts will go down. So there are other things that can be used to increase testosterone production in people that still want to be of childbearing age and still want to be fertile.
Yeah, and I like the comment in the comments. Look, as you age, a lot of us end up using glasses. Why wouldn't you to see better? Same thing as you age. As a man, why wouldn't you use testosterone to optimize health? And it's so important for mood, like you brought up, Dr. Miller. Depression, as men get older, becomes more common. And as one replaces testosterone, that mood and that energy can certainly be helped by testosterone replacement.
Yeah, there's also significant benefits that it helps, not only those things, things that make us feel better, but increased muscle to fat, improves cardiovascular health. And a big one that we see today is dementia. It reduces risk of dementia. I'm big on that. I'm big on reducing dementia. And I have a strong family history of dementia, and I want to do everything possible I can to prevent cognitive decline. And that's one of the things that like you, I do use testosterone replacement therapy. I've been on testosterone replacement therapy for almost 15 years now. And I think it's helped me. I look at my cohorts that aren't as conscious about their health, and I look far younger than they do at this point in time in our lives. And I feel far younger, and I also act far younger.
Yeah, I like to joke. I don't
Love
look too
that.
bad for 95 years old, right?
No, we don't, right? And this is part of the whole health picture, right? Is carving out and finding what is most appropriate for you and what your health goals are, right? Like maybe it's not appropriate for everyone. Maybe it's not something that they want to incorporate in their lives, but there are other options as well. And much of that has to do with obviously that diet and lifestyle piece. And just to speak on the dementia aspect of it, there is a really big glucose insulin connection there as well. So this is where it comes down to it's not just the hormones, it's all those other things that are so interconnected
Type
that we have to look at
diabetes,
holistically. Yeah,
type 3 diabetes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. So I would love to talk about labs and kind of dive into, the normal ranges versus functional ranges, maybe some advanced testing that we might look at. Um, and I put this slide together because you guys know, I kind of go outside of the box in my practice and look at sort of unconventionally run labs because when patients come to see me, they've seen lots of other clinicians. They're often told that their labs are normal. And normal doesn't necessarily mean optimal or functional. Normal is based on, as we know, sometimes very sick people, and it's a sliding scale, isn't it? So I'd love to hear a little more from both of you on thoughts on testing on optimal levels versus normal levels, and what advice really you would give to patients that maybe have had conventional testing done and their doctors say to them, well, your labs are normal. There's nothing we can do here.
Well, I think that's a cop out for most doctors. Oh, you're in normal range. That's fine. Well, what most people don't know is most labs will take the population where the laboratory is, and as America gets sicker, that mean of whatever value it is shifts because they're doing it based on a couple 100,000 people measurement. And then the normal range is two standard deviations on each side of that middle range. So you can have a number that looks normal, but isn't optimal for your personal health. And so that's where I think I understand how busy doctors are. I get that. But it's no excuse to say, you're low normal. Gosh, you're two standard deviations from this middle normal number. And even though the range says normal, it doesn't mean you're functioning normally or optimally. And so it's critically important to understand that you don't just accept when your doctor says, oh, your TSH is normal. That's your thyroid stimulating hormone. What if it's on the high end, close to hypothyroidism, and you want to drive that thyroid stimulating hormone down with some natural replacement therapy? And then you actually have more energy. So it's very, 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 very important to understand just because your doctor says it's normal, if you're not feeling normal, then something has to be done interventionally, lifestyle wise, or whatever it may be, to get you into a range that's optimal for your functioning.
Yeah, I think optimization is the key word here. And also, I learned a long time ago that you treat the patient, you don't treat the lab value.
Amen.
And
Yes, absolutely.
you treat the patient, you don't treat the lab value. Lab values are there for you to evaluate and use, but not, oh, your labs are fine, you don't need anything. And I see so many, so many practitioners that just take the lazy weight out and, oh, your labs are fine. Um, oh, you don't want to be on hormones, they're bad for you. Just, you got to listen to the patient, see what their symptomatology is, and you got to figure out how you can improve how they feel and their general health and wellness. And you use everything in your tool chest to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We have a human being in front of us, and I think that's our responsibility as doctors to listen and to support them as an individual, not, what is conventional.
Amen.
Very
You
much
are
so.
not a population statistic. You are a human.
You're a
Yeah,
Amen.
human.
when I first went to this conference, this health and wellness conference, and came back and was excited about it, and I actually was making my patients feel better as opposed to, hey, take this pill, this is good for you, and trying to convince them to take it. Whereas I was actually giving them something that improved not only their health and wellness, but their sense of well-being and their happiness. And that's where, hormones and lifestyle and what you do, Kristina, are so important to improve people's lives and health and wellness.
Mm. I mean, I'm going to toot my own horn because I agree with that one.
Well, you do. You do a great job at that.
No, I love it. I couldn't agree more. And I think it's so fundamentally important. And it's again, never to knock a conventional standpoint from needing a pharmaceutical for whatever reason. But I think it's also important to look at all the other pieces. It's not just about taking an SSRI or just taking a statin or just taking this. You have to ask the questions, A, why am I taking this? And what else can I do? And A, maybe how long I have to be on this for. And, to really look at it from a whole person perspective. And, not demonize really either side and really bridge the gap between more of a holistic approach and a conventional approach, because actually that is what's going to optimize a whole person care and really, really treating that person rather than just the symptoms.
Yeah, and you're a special doctor because you actually care about the individual, and that's what, most people are looking for is a physician that will listen to them. And yeah, we can use the lab values and we can try to optimize certain things, but the first thing that needs to happen is the patient needs to be heard. And then doctor in Latin means teacher, and then it's the doctor's job to teach and say, okay, now here are the things we're going to try. But you're an individual, and I think you as a clinician, Dr. Carman, do such a great job holistically looking at that individual as a whole. And I think if your physician, your healthcare provider isn't doing that for you, then it's time to find someone that does have that approach to medicine.
Yeah, agree. And there's more, it's shifting. I
Kristina, I
do
want
think
to toot
this is
your
an exciting time to be in this industry. I'm certainly very excited to be in this field because I think there's much more of an acceptance at looking at alternative medicine, whatever even that means, and really supporting, and bridging the gap between, more conventional approaches or more Western approaches, shall we say, and what we would look at as more a holistic health. So it is a very exciting time, and I agree with you on that one, Ryan. Like if you're really not getting the answers from your doctors, and it may take many doctors, so please don't get discouraged. And if that's the takeaway message from today, is just keep advocating for your health, because there are clinicians out there that will take the time. I know we're all busy and we have very busy practices, but we are also human too. And, there is a human connection between the doctor and that patient. And to be able to listen and to hold space for someone, I think is a really special thing to do. And us as doctors, we should never forget that. And I think as patients, we should always advocate to find those people that will be there for us in that kind of scenario.
Well, I want to compliment both of you guys. I'm like Ryan. I'm an MD, Western medicine trained, but I think we both have very open minds and are always all the time seeking knowledge. And I've learned so much from both of you guys. And I think this is important not only for our patients to know what is out there that can help them that they may not be getting, but also I learn something every time I listen to you, Kristina, and I learn something every time I listen to you, Ryan. So I wanted to really thank you guys for both for that.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Okay, guys, let's talk about nutrition and hydration and all of those lifestyle components that play a huge role when it comes to men's health specifically. So, why would we say a protein-rich, antioxidant-rich Mediterranean style diet is so beneficial for male hormones and metabolic health?
Dr. Miller, you want to start or you want me to dive in?
Uh, well, I'm not sure I know what a Mediterranean style diet is, other than it's a whole food diet. I don't know that it's been. As you know, Christina, I'm a big proponent of a carnivore diet and a ketogenic diet, and I'm sure Mediterranean diet is sort of ketogenic. I don't think it's
Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is very much so.
I think lowering the sugars and carbohydrates and lowering the processed foods and the things that are unnatural, foods that God didn't make. We were put on this earth. God put us on this earth, and He put us on this earth to consume foods that He makes. And like Ryan alluded to earlier, foods that are grown in your area, those are God-given foods, and stay away from that and reverse metabolic dysfunction. I think the so-called Mediterranean diet or ketogenic diet or the carnivore diet in extreme cases where people really need to reverse metabolic dysfunction is how they improve our hormonal balance and our well-being and reverse these metabolic inflammatory processes.
And I would just comment that the closer to earth that you eat, the fewer supplements you're going to need. And so people hear, oh, you are what you eat. And I like to joke, no, you aren't. You are what you ate. So all life is a sponge or a straw. I'm sticking my straw into a sponge that stuck its straw into a sponge that stuck its straw into a sponge. So all that we're eating has been upcycled into what we eat. And if there's like a poisoned chemical process in the middle of that or below that, eventually it bioconcentrates in us. So if you can eat whole foods in whole forms, more organically, closer to nature, eat those healthy vegetables. Sulforaphane in broccoli is also really good for health. I love my broccoli. I know some people have the taste bud that hates broccoli. That's fine. There are plenty of healthy veggies that I eat as part of a keto lifestyle. I eat grass-fed beef. I eat grass-fed lamb. I love seafood, but I also am very careful about where my seafood is sourced. Is it wild caught? Does it come from areas that are high in chemicals or not, etc.? So just having that consciousness of you're not just eating food, you're eating something that's been part of a circle of life and know where it came from. And I'll go back to the comment, eat things appropriate to the season and the locality where you are.
And remember that the food that you put in your mouth, whether that be good food or junk food, is signaling every single one of the cells in your body to do what they should or shouldn't be doing. Your food is your messenger. It is chemical messengers to this whole entire incredible ecosystem. It is the building block, and I'll say food and hydration. So water being, it wouldn't be a show if I didn't talk about hydration, I think.
No,
So it's a big
plus
piece in it. Yeah,
minerals with that
minerals.
hydration. And from a lab point of view, 100 patients come into the lab, 75 out of 100 are dehydrated.
Absolutely.
Ryan,
Ryan, I see it every day. It's a big issue.
Steven, what do you think about the fourth phase of water?
I agree.
Yeah.
It's real. It's real in terms of how water acts, in terms of a hydrogel within the cellular membrane layers. There is a fourth phase of water, and it's critical to our biological cellular functions. And so, sourcing your water, avoiding fluorides, which displaces iodine in your body and messes up your metabolism. So, when I travel, I have a water bottle that filters out fluoride. I am blessed to live on a farm with a well that has no fluoride in it where I am, but so much of our water is chemically processed as well. So being conscious of the water you consume is important. And that fourth phase of water within the human body has such an important function on our mitochondrial energy, on our cellular energy, et cetera. I mean, I won't give a whole lecture.
Your grounding mat is improving the flow of your fourth phase of water through your body.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It comes back to that connection to the earth as well. It's all part of that circle. We're energetic beings, right? We need all of that. Okay, so to wrap it up, the last piece before I hand it over to our gorgeous Autumn is to talk a little bit. This is a big subject, so we're just going to touch on it very briefly, the mental health connection and purpose piece. And I know, Brooke, you have read a really amazing book recently, and if you wanted to sort of kick off with that, and then we will wrap up for today.
Well, yeah, that was, I looked through this today and I saw, oh, wow, that's there. I've got to talk about Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, and he was a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and he had a theory that, uh, if you had purpose or meaning, that you would be healthier and happier and live longer. And so he pretty much did experiments during his time in concentration camp. And anytime he would see someone that he looked like was struggling to survive or wanting to survive, he would try to stimulate them mentally and give them something to live for. And I've always said or recently said many times that everybody has to have a purpose. And if you lose your purpose, then your will to live and your health goes down. And so this book, I think, is living proof of meaning, man's search for meaning, and it's really an exciting topic, and it's so true.
Yeah.
And I think taking care of all those physical things can certainly lead to mental wellness, but living a purpose-driven life and serving others with the gifts that you've been given on this planet brings much more to the life we live, not just for you personally from a selfish point of view, but giving to others and giving of self to others brings so much balance to life. And so finding whatever your purpose is and engaging in it to better each other, to better your community, being in community is so important to our overall health. And I think that's far overlooked. We can try all these medical things, certainly, but find your purpose, engage in it, and make the world a better place. And your mental well-being improves in that process.
Yeah, it's you're exactly right. The gift of giving, I mean, it's far better to give than it is to receive. At least at this stage in my life, it certainly is. And Viktor Frankl, what kept him alive, he said, was he didn't want the Nazis to win. He wanted to write this book, and he wanted to write his words down and pass it on. And he certainly lived it, and it certainly worked for him and many of the other people that survived the Holocaust.
Yeah. I love it. It's that it helps with the stress response as well, which we know stress is the biggest driver of disease, all disease. So being able to have that purpose and that connection really, really supports that pathway as well.
Amen.
So Autumn, I think we have Q&A. I'm sure we have lots of questions. Yeah, okay, let's go.
Yes. Hello to everyone and everyone watching. As Dr. Carman mentioned, my name is Autumn, and I'll be walking our wonderful doctors through a few audience questions. We won't have time to get through all of them, but I've done my best to try to summarize a few. But before we jump in, I did want to mention that Dr. Carman's slides that she presented tonight will be available on our website tomorrow afternoon. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested in downloading them for yourself. All right, let's jump right in. Diane asked, my husband wants to know what to do if your testosterone level is normal, but free testosterone is low.
That's a great question. And free time. Okay, so we have something in our body called sex hormone binding globulin. So you can produce a normal amount of hormones, and for some people it's genetic. You just tend to bind the hormones that you make, and then that little carrier molecule releases the hormone to the cells as it circulates around. So some people have a high sex hormone binding globulin, so that free available hormone isn't as available. So yes, getting the level a little higher, even though it's a normal range, optimize the range, and then the amount that can be bound will be less, then you'll have more free. And so, there's a bunch of esoteric things one can do as well, but trying to get that level up, you could go on some replacement therapy. Okay, I'm going to share an odd one, but one thing you can do, and you know, there's a red
Bring out
light
the
The red light.
lights.
Yeah.
on devices, and you can shine it on the boys down below, and that will increase your testosterone levels. That's one very simple intervention you can do. I'm not advertising any brand per se, but you can, for 5-10 minutes a day, not only for prostate health, but on the testicles, will increase your testosterone level without replacement.
You can also support your liver. So support the liver health. That is a big component there.
Critically important, absolutely. And fatty liver slows processes, and that's why metabolically getting yourself healthy and getting the fat out of the liver by getting back to a normal weight can help in your hormone balance as well, because that fatty liver will decrease your ability to detoxify, but it also will bind some of the helpful things your body is making and not make them bioavailable. So taking care of the metabolic health and getting the liver healthy is critically important. You're absolutely right, Dr. Carman.
Another question, which kind of ties into what you were just sharing. We've had several questions about sunlight exposure. Does sunlight coming through a window still provide meaningful benefits? Do you really need to be outside? When it comes to getting daily sun, especially in places with long winters like Boston, what's the best approach? Should people aim for sun on the face, skin, or hair, or does daily sunscreen use interfere with any of those benefits? So I know I threw a lot at you guys, but just a bit of a summary of a lot of questions from many of our viewers.
Yeah, so our windows have what's called a low E coating on them, and it removes the good light that we would otherwise receive. You have to be outside, and getting the light in the eyes will help set the circadian rhythm. So being outside, I don't care how cold it is, getting that morning light and some evening light will help with those rhythms. And a lot of the waves of infrared light will actually penetrate through several layers of clothing. Now the UV lights, that's different. Ultraviolet light, the B is what we need for vitamin D. If you are above the 37th parallel anywhere in the northern hemisphere, you're not making vitamin D this time of year. So, supplementing can be important for some people, and knowing what your range is. So being outdoors, 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 nature, 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 yes.
I think that early morning sunlight is so important. It's so restorative and uplifting, and that's very, very important. But also, I recommend to my patients, just about all my patients that come in that have some reason to use this, just what you held up a while ago, Ryan, that red and near infrared light. I think everybody should have one if they can afford one.
Yeah, and there's some good ones now that are less expensive. And going back to the sunscreen question, sunscreen is essentially poison.
Yep.
It could just cover up. You don't need to slather your body in unnatural chemicals. And if you're in a climate where, look, the sun is intense a certain part of the day, don't be out that part of the day per se, or minimize the exposure. Once you turn pink, then cover up. But sunscreen itself, that's one of the biggest problems we've had in medicine for many years. And even dermatologists are starting to reverse their stance on sunscreen, a lot of them.
Melody asked, is it true starting bioidentical hormone treatment at 65 will not help much? What is Dr. Miller's opinion? What is the risk and benefit for 65 and over in both men and women?
I think it's never too late to start bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
Agree.
It improves muscle strength, bone strength, brain health, cardiovascular health. If you start estradiol and you have established atherosclerosis, then your risk of cardiovascular event may go up for the first 6 months because of the clotting factors that it affects in the liver. But long term, your cardiovascular risk goes down. And also topical estradiol doesn't seem to stimulate the liver to produce those clotting factors. But no, I think it's never too late to start. You want to know, basically take the whole patient's history and physical examination into account. And there's some people that I'm very hesitant to start on hormone replacement therapy, those especially that have had recurrent episodes of venous thromboembolism, but a lot of them are being anticoagulated already. So I do have patients who have had pulmonary embolisms if they're on anticoagulation that I will start on testosterone replacement therapy.
And two of the best anticoagulants are putting your feet on the earth and hydrating.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of concerns around, does testosterone therapy increase your cancer risk?
No.
No, I
Go ahead.
would be careful in a prostate cancer patient. You know, if you have known
Yeah.
prostate cancer, then it's a contraindication. But beyond that, no.
Also on the sunscreen topic, Pam Hicks asked, is zinc sunscreen under the category of toxic sunscreens?
I'd be careful with some of them because they're micronized, and so they're made into a nanoparticle size, and your skin can absorb many things. So looking at the formulation, nano doesn't mean good. We've heard it so much nano in the media for years, but you have to be careful. What can the body absorb? So I think even with that, one has to be careful.
Last question. Bob Isaacson asked, what is known about the benefits of sulforaphane as a way to mitigate the effects of microplastics?
Yeah, there's some interesting data on sulforaphane as being able to bind and even chelate out microplastics from the body. Recent studies show that some people consume up to almost a credit card's worth of plastic in a week. And so sulforaphane, which is broccoli derived, you can take it as a supplement if you don't like your broccoli like I do, but getting sulforaphane can actually chelate and bind plastics for excretion.
It's also a very, very powerful antioxidant, so it supports the liver health and the detox pathways, which all are indicated when it comes to plastics in particular. So very, very powerful.
All right, before I move on to our closing announcements, is there anything that any of you would like to leave our audience with? Any closing thoughts?
I just want to say thank you to Dr. Miller and Dr. Carman. Equally, I'm always uplifted by these in terms of gaining knowledge, and I know there's so many questions I've seen go by in the chat. I would love to answer all of them.
I know.
There will be an article on red light therapy and photobiomodulation in the spring edition of the Journal of Independent Medicine. So stay tuned for that because there are some very good questions there. And we could talk for hours. This is such an important topic, and I know we're all seeking better health and wellness. And I'm just grateful to the team at IMA for bringing together conversations like this so we can all continue on our health journeys together.
I just want to thank Kristina and Ryan, two of my favorite people in the whole wide world.
Oh,
Love doing these things with you guys. I think we did the one on photobiomodulation together, and
so
I
much
think
fun.
as much or more fun tonight as we did then. I also want to thank IMA for bringing all of these great topics for people out there to learn about honest and true medicine. There's so much noise out there. And I think I'm so glad to be a part of this organization that it humbles me.
I couldn't agree more. And I echo all of that, but I will also highlight that we have some really incredible guides that the team and I have started creating when it comes to men's health. So if you guys do want to sort of dive in and get into topic specific on the prostate, on hormones, etc., we're rolling those out over the next few weeks. So do check those out on the website because there's some good content in there.
That is a perfect segue for my first closing announcement. So thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn.
Thank you. All right. Well, as Dr. Carman mentioned, we have a powerful new set of resources that she put together, 4 free men's health guides, and there are more coming soon. These guides take a smarter, evidence-based look at the issues that so many men face, from heart health and hormone balance to prostate care and more. Each guide is practical, easy to follow, and focused on helping men understand their labs, avoid common pitfalls, and just building lasting vitality through nutrition, lifestyle, function, and functional testing. You can download these guides for free by visiting our website or the link on screen, imahealth.org/tools and guides. Save the date. As a reminder, our next IMA conference is set to take place in Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, on Friday, April 17th through Saturday, April 18th of next year. You can fill out the form linked on screen to be the first to know more information about this event, such as early bird ticket sales, and to receive details on discounted hotel rates as soon as they're available. More updates are on the way, so sign up now at the link on screen. That's imahealth.org/save the date IMA 2026. In the latest episode of Kids Corner, pediatrician and IMA Senior Fellow Dr. Elizabeth Mumper takes a deep dive into the essential role of glutathione, the body's primary intracellular antioxidant. Glutathione is crucial for healthy detoxification, and when levels drop too low, we often see persistent inflammation, increased oxidative stress, and worsening neurological symptoms. You can watch this new episode by visiting the link on your screen or by checking it out on our website. All right, thank you all so much. And also wanted to let you all know that next week we will not have a show. We will be out celebrating Thanksgiving. Many of our staff members will be traveling, but we will be back the following week. So we just wanted to remind you all of that. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. But before we wrap, I wanted to share a brief clip of our President and Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Joseph Verone, who appeared on the national desk this morning discussing organ donation and several important issues surrounding this topic. If you found tonight's discussion valuable, please share it with your family and friends. And remember that you can always catch replays and sign up for upcoming webinars at imahealth.org/weekly webinars. On behalf of everyone here at IMA, thank you so much for supporting honest and independent science and patient-centered care. Until next time, good night.
An alarming report by Health and Human Services raises questions about the U.S. organ transplant system, including cases where procurement began while patients still showed signs of life. With more than 48,000 operations performed last year, some doctors are raising questions about the system and the lack of proper regulation. Joining us right now to discuss is Dr. Joseph Verone, President and Chief Medical Officer of the Independent Medical Alliance. Good morning to you, sir. Always good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You've warned this is turning into the commodification of human life. What do you mean by this, and how does this report support that?
Okay, so first let me start by telling you I'm a very strong supporter of ethical organ donation. When I use the phrase commodification of human life, I mean the system has allowed the value of a person, of an actual human being, to be reduced to a commercial value of a pair of organs, to say that. The new HHS report actually confirmed what many of us have been warning about. There are a bunch of cases where they start procuring organs when the patient is still alive. For example, they have spontaneous breathing, they have brainstem reflexes, or they have incomplete testing. So once you start treating a patient body as a part of an inventory more than anything else, you know, you are losing your dignity. And that's a line that the current healthcare system should never cross.
Yeah. And, you know, brain death rules vary widely across hospitals. How big of a problem is that, and what safeguards should be in place?
Well, it's extremely serious. I mean, most Americans assume that brain death is uniform, but that is not true. In the United States, brain death determination varies from hospital to hospital, from state to state, sometimes from physician to physician. Some hospitals require that you do apnea testing, other ones rely on a single exam, other ones require confirmatory tests, others don't. So there is so much inconsistency that it's very unethical in some instances to say who's really dead and who's really not. So what we need is we need a uniform, federally informed, evidence-based standard for what brain death is. Not, actual guidelines, but mostly safeguards to protect patients.
Yeah, and donation after circulatory death is growing fast. That's when patients are on life support, often in a coma, so their prognosis is more of a judgment call, which is why it is so controversial. So what are families often told or not told before they agree to donate their loved one's organs?
I mean, when you have donation after circulatory death, that has grown very rapidly because you want to expand the donor pool. So in donation after circulatory death, when the heart stops, even if it's briefly, the procurement team comes in and starts, working on getting the organs. The controversy is very simple. Is it 2 or 3 minutes of no pulse enough to declare a person permanently dead? In the US, it can be as short as 75 seconds. So I don't think that that's 100% ethical. We need to have more testing. We need to have an informed consent that is complete, because it's often incomplete because these time thresholds are so fragile from an ethical standpoint.
Yeah. So what immediate reforms do we need right now to basically restore public trust and ensure that organ donation is actually ethically transparent?
Well, there are reforms that are urgently needed. Number one, you need a true national standard for what brain death is. That's number one. Number two, you need to have transparent and honest, informed consent of the organ donation. You truly have to be 100% honest on that. You need to have an independent oversight. There needs to be an organization that truly oversees this, and not as a commerce, not a business. And you need to prohibit any procurement activity before the patient meets the full legal definition of death. So no such thing as near death or likely to die. You have to verify that the patient is dead.
Yeah, and to learn more, you can visit imahealth.org. Dr. Joseph Ferron, President and Chief Medical Officer of the Independent Medical Alliance. Sir, great talking to you as always. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Happy Thanksgiving.
My pleasure. Happy Thanksgiving.